So you're thinking about moving to Dayton, Ohio. Well, I've got the perfect video for you today. Being a transplant myself, I get to talk about all of the things that you'll love and perhaps some of the things you won't like in today's video. But before I do, I just want to say thank you so much to the overwhelmingly good response we've gotten to these videos. We had no idea the type of impact that these videos would have, especially to those of you relocating inside to Dayton from outside of Ohio. And we truly love making these videos and we truly love having an impact on all of you. So thank you so much for that. Listen, if this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is about living in Dayton, Ohio, or any of the surrounding suburbs, make sure hit the subscribe button, tap the little bell for notifications so you can be the first to learn about the market here in Dayton. My name is Mike Wall. My team and I get calls and text emails from people just like you every single day looking to make the move to Dayton, and we absolutely love it. So whether you're making a move in the next 9 days or 90 days, make sure give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, or even schedule a Zoom call in the link below. We'd be happy to help you make the smooth move to Dayton. So here's what you came for, right? The pros and cons of living in Dayton, Ohio. And again, I get to share from my experience being a transplant. I moved here from Dallas, Texas in actually it was in 1999, moved to Columbus, met my wife, and then we moved to Dayton in 2001 and have been here ever since. So I'm going to talk about some of the pros, some of the things we love, and some of the things maybe not so much. And so what I want to start out with is really the obvious, right? The weather. The weather in Dayton, Ohio. Again, I came from Texas. I recall flying over on a plane, and let me just tell you, we didn't get a lot of snow in Dallas, Texas, back in the late 90s. And it was a bit of a shock looking out the window on the plane ride over here. When we were about to land, it went from, plain ground to solid white. And I just remember being like, wow, you know what I mean? That was something else for me. It's really cold here in the wintertime. And when I mean really cold, it gets below zero on some days. And so that can be a bit of a challenge, especially for some of you coming from the South or even the far West. And it's something that you need to be prepared for. It's not something that would inhibit you from living your normal everyday life. It's just a change. And so, again, wearing big coats and turning the heat on can circumvent some of those issues, but it is something, again, that you should be prepared for. And the heat, this is one of the things, it's funny, we have conversations with people from Florida all the time, and we talk about the four seasons and we love the four seasons, but the reality of the heat here is that oftentimes in the summertime, we're in July right now, we're in late July. If you look at the weather here in Dayton, it is comparable to the weather in South Florida right now. It is atrociously hot. I think the high is going to be 94 today, and the humidity is insanely high. And so I really don't see the difference or the benefit in living in Ohio versus Florida. If I had my choice, I may want to live in Florida simply because I love the beach, right? And let's face it, there's not a lot of beaches in Ohio, unfortunately. So the obvious one to talk about is the weather, right? The second thing I want to talk about, and this has been an issue for quite some time, especially since the real estate market crashed in 2008. A lot of you know what happened. And in Dayton in particular, we were a GM city, right? One of our largest employers was GM. I believe the Chevy Blazer was made here. And in 2008, they actually shut the GM plant down. And certainly that affected our local economy here. But since then, we've had to deal with a lot of boarded up houses. And I'll share with you an article I found that I'd like to cite, but I'm going to share my screen with you here really quickly. Dayton overrun with zombie properties, right? Dayton, Ohio. In Dayton, there are thousands of vacant, blighted properties that drag down property values and quality of life for residents. There are an estimated 5,000 vacant properties with Dayton city limits And of those, 1,000 are public nuisances. Residents along Terry Street in Dayton are fed up and want action. The city of Dayton has demolished already. The city of Dayton has demolished 2,200 structures since 2013 at a total cost of $30 million. Right, so you can see this is certainly had a huge impact on the city of Dayton. Representatives from the city described this problem as a moving target because it's an ever-changing landscape. Despite the city's efforts knocking down 2,200 properties since 2013, there are still an estimated 5,000 vacant properties within Dayton's city limits, and of those, thousands are public nuisances. And here's the issue, guys. There are more being added every single day, every single week, every single month, right? Where dilapidated properties are just transitioning into that phase where they need to be boarded up and they need to be torn down. And so the problem is just not getting any better. So if you are in the downtown Dayton area, you may notice some areas if you're driving around in some of the more residential areas that some of the properties there are they're boarded up. They're falling apart. They are not fun to look at. So that would be number 2 on the cons list. Number 3 is its proximity to water, guys. I'm a big lake guy. You heard me talk about earlier about Florida, and my wife, obviously, we love to visit Florida because we love the beach, but we also love the lake. And unfortunately, you'll see here on the map, there's not a lot of water. If you look at a map of Dayton here in the surrounding area, as you can see, I think the closest, or one of the closest, is Buck Creek State Park. And if you go, down to, let me clear this off real quick. If you go down into Waynesville, which is, it's southeast of the city, out towards Springboro, you can see that there's another lake called Caesars Creek State Park, and it is a smaller lake. It's roughly 5,000 acres. And I know that sounds big, but trust me, it's very small, especially when you're putting a boat on the lake. And then everybody from Cincinnati and Dayton is going to this lake. It gets very crowded very quickly. So if you are a water person, Dayton is not a great area for that. I will say there is Brookville Lake, which is another lake. It is a smaller lake, which is about an hour and 20 minutes away. And then up north into Indian Lake, which is another smaller lake, very shallow. But it is another place, if you like to put a boat in the water, that you'd like to go. So number 2 is not a lot to say for the shoreline here in Ohio, unfortunately. Moving right along, the public school system. So the public school system, I'm just going to read from Niche here, got a C- on the state's report card. And it's a C- in academics, a C for teachers, a C+ for clubs and activities, a B+ for diversity, and a C- for college prep, and B for health and safety. So, you might say that the school system leaves more to the imagination. Certainly Dayton City Schools is a public school district located in Dayton, Ohio. There are 11,721 students in grades K through 12. So it's fairly large, with a student to teacher ratio of 15:1, which is not terrible. According to state test scores, 24% of students are at least proficient in math, and 32% in reading. So again, if you are moving to Dayton because you want to put your kids in a good school system, you may want to consider some of the outlying suburbs that have a higher rank. And certainly Niche is a good place for you to go to actually do your research, as I've done here. Number 4, and this is a big one as it relates to affordability. And although Dayton is one of the more affordable housing markets, certainly their taxes are really, really high, depending on where you're coming from. They are some of the highest in the country. And Upgraded Home cites that Ohio has a flat tax rate of 5.75% across the state. This gets added to any and all purchases made within Ohio. Dayton has an additional county tax rate of 1.75. This means that everything you purchase in Dayton, Ohio will be taxed at 7.5%. This is higher than average for states across the U.S. Many states have no state or county tax, and many that do have them have rates of 5% or lower. So extremely high tax rates. One of the ways to overcome some of that is perhaps to move into one of the townships who don't have a city income tax. And in fact, there's no income tax at all in many of the townships. And I believe Beaver Creek is one of the cities that also shares, although that may have changed. So if you would like to do your own independent research, I would recommend you do that. But keeping in mind, living in one of the townships, certainly you will not be paying any city income tax. And people like me who live in Clear Creek Township absolutely love that. Next is a high crime rate and poverty. I'm going to go back to Upgraded Home, and they cite that you'll be surprised to learn that even though Dayton has an affordable cost of living, it is still has a 27% poverty rate. This is significantly higher than the average poverty rate of 13%. Due to the higher poverty rate, this unfortunately leads to a higher than average crime rate as well. This may be concerning to you, but you'll need to look at the data and decide for yourself. The majority of crime is property related rather than violent crimes. This property crime rate is 70.6, which is nearly double the national average. This doesn't mean that violent crimes don't occur in this area. It just means that the majority are property related crimes. So, decide for yourself, and that being that most of the crime is nonviolent may certainly provide more peace of mind. Moving right along. So I wrote at the end here, there's not much to do compared to bigger, more metropolitan cities. And let me just give you some context here. My wife, who is from Holly, Michigan, right? She moved here, I believe, in 8th grade. And to her, Holly, Michigan is a one-stop light town where the best restaurant is a DQ Grill and Chill. So to her, this was a big city. This was a big move, and there was certainly a lot more to do in Dayton, Ohio than there was in Holly. But for me, who was a Dallas, Texas transplant, it certainly was, there wasn't as much to do here. There weren't as many restaurants or shopping opportunities. And that's okay, because I think the trade-off is I felt like being here in this area, it was a better place to raise a family. And certainly I'll talk a little bit more about some of the pros as we transition or segment into the next part of this video, because I'm going to talk about the pros now. And the pros are some of the things that I myself enjoy on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. The first one being the bike trails, right? You will hear a lot about the bike trails in and around the Dayton area, because it is the nation's largest bike path with over 350 miles of bike trails. And what's so cool about this is I ride a bike. I love riding a bike. And especially now in the summer, spring, and fall, when the weather is more manageable, you can get out on these bike trails. I get out on the bike trail down in Waynesville, and I sometimes ride north to Xenia, or I ride south to Mainville. And I so love it because I can get out on my bike. And one thing I want you to understand about these bike trails is basically what they've done is they've taken old railroad tracks and they've paved over them. So if you can imagine, railroad tracks for the most part are flat, right? And so these bike trails are not that challenging because you don't see a lot of hills going either way. And so what I really enjoy is just getting out on some of these bike paths. And you can see some of the pictures here that are moving through this website. A lot of them are covered and shaded. A lot of them run right beside the river. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful part of Ohio where you can get out on the bike trail, ride for literally miles and miles and miles, and just see this beautiful scenery as you go through. and hear the birds chirping. Oftentimes we've seen animals, deer, squirrels run across the bike path. It is just a really, really unique thing to do in Dayton, and you can take your kids down there. It's just a good way to get out into nature and do something other than keeping your kids behind a TV or computer or phone screen, and getting them out and just getting them into nature, and then getting them into doing some exercise. So the bike trails are fantastic. Highly, highly, highly recommend. If you own a bicycle, getting out on the bikes. Now, you don't have to ride a bike. You can, if you like to run or if you like to walk, just get out and walk as well. But certainly you can enjoy more of the bike trails if you're on a bike. So let's talk about the second one, the park systems here, 5 river metro parks. I'm gonna a little bit about the park system here, because certainly that is another one of the things that we enjoy. I just did a video about Kettering, Ohio, and I started that video off from Cox Arboretum, which is one of probably my favorite parks of all of the parks in the Five Rivers Metro Park System. The Five Rivers Metro Park System is a regional public park system consisting of conservatories and outdoor recreation and educational facilities that serve the Dayton metropolitan area. The name Five Rivers Metro Parks comes from 5 major waterways that converge in Dayton. These waterways are the Great Miami River, Mad River, Stillwater River, Wolf Creek, and Twin Creek. Five Rivers Metro Parks comprises of more than 15,400 acres and 25 facilities with a number of amenities and features. These include hiking trails, a mountain bike area at Huffman Park, Metro Park, horse bridle trails, a disc golf course, a whitewater feature at Eastwood Metro Park, and a large butterfly house at Cox Arboretum Metro Park. Five Rivers Metro Parks provides year-round recreation, educational, and conservation opportunities to the greater Dayton community. The fountain, right? This is the quintessential Dayton backdrop at the fountain at Riverscape Metro Park. Shoots 25,000 US gallons of water per minute toward the center of the river. The central geyser of the fountain rises from jets 200 feet in the air, converging 395,000 square feet, 36,700 square meters across 800 feet, 244 meters diameter. The Five Rivers Fountain of Lights is one of the largest fountains in the world. So cool. If you've not had an opportunity to look at video on that, and certainly I can provide some here as well. And when I started this whole video journey, one of the places I started to do the videos, obviously because of the significance of the backdrop, was down at the fountains, and I so enjoyed doing that video. As you can see here, I'm going to scroll down, but there are roughly 19 different named Metro Park facilities here, and it gives you their name and then the location as well, so you can do additional research if that's something you're interested in. And certainly I look forward to, in the future, providing more videos from our awesome Metro Parks. So let's move on. Obviously, I love this one. There's really no traffic here to speak of at all, and it makes it really easy to get places. You have Highway 75. I'm gonna go to the map here of Dayton, and this is something I can draw out for you. But I want you to see the main thoroughfares running through this city. So 75 is the main highway, and I believe 75 goes from Florida. I mean, I think it goes down to Miami, Florida, or maybe it's the Gulf side. But anyway, it goes down to South Florida, all the way up into Michigan, and you can see the highway starts here at the bottom and comes all the way through the city on up into the north, crossing 70 here. So it runs from north to south. Another major highway coming through the area is 70, as you can see it right here. And this runs from Columbus Well, this runs all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast. I believe it's one of the longer highways in the United States, and it is a major thoroughfare. And another way to get around Dayton, especially if you're looking to cut some time off coming from 75 and then jumping onto 70, is to cut over from 675, as you can see here, which runs through Beaver Creek, which is the home of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base right over here. But this, again, is a good highway system in that if you are trying to get anywhere in Dayton, you're not really ever going to run into much traffic at all. The only time you'll ever run into any traffic is, maybe from 3 to 5 o'clock in and out of the city here south of the city is the only time I ever run into anything coming in and out of the city, but it will not be much to manage at all if there's anything. And certainly if you're coming from one of the bigger, more metropolitan cities like Dallas, right, where traffic is absolutely horrible. I know traffic is bad in a lot of the major metropolitan areas like LA, and traffic got so bad in New York, people don't even drive anymore. They walk everywhere. But I know Houston's bad, Tampa's bad, but Dayton is not something you'll ever have to deal with as it relates to traffic. So that's something you really, really enjoy. Moving right along here, the cost of living, guys, is fantastic. I did a little calculator here, but you can see just moving from Dallas, Texas, because again, that's where I came from. You'll need an annual income of $43,671 to replace your income there versus being here in Dayton. The cost of living is 12.7% lower than it is in Dallas, and housing is 30.1% lower. So the affordability is it's ultimately just better. Dayton, Ohio's cost of living is 10% lower than the national average. The cost of living in any area can be very based on factors such as your career, its average salary, and the real estate market of that area. So I cite pay scale here just because it can provide some context. So if you want to reference whatever area you're coming from, you can go to payscale.com, cost of living calculator, and then input your city here. And then it will make adjustments based on the cost of living in your city versus the cost of living here in the Dayton area. But you can see, again, very affordable and 10% lower than the national average. So you may be able to afford a lot more house here in the Dayton area than wherever you're coming in from. So that's something certainly to keep in mind. We have great local colleges, right? And this was something, that I thought, when moving into the area, a lot of people don't consider this because, let's face it, many people, they don't stay local to go to college. Oftentimes they transfer out of state, and Ohio has a fantastic university system. And Dayton locally has some great colleges as well. But just to give you some context of the colleges located here in Dayton, you can see Wright State University is here out in the Beaver Creek Fairborn area. The University of Dayton is right here, and Sinclair, which is one of the more affordable community colleges. In fact, I believe it's one of the most affordable colleges in the entire state of Ohio. So if you have a son or daughter who's wanting to start out perhaps and do 2 years in a community college to keep their expenses down or college debt down, Sinclair might be a good place to start out, and then either transition to someplace locally, Wright State, University of Dayton, Miami University, the Ohio State University, right, which is less than an hour and a half away, is a really good possibility for students. But the college system here in the Dayton area, many times people can graduate and they don't even have to leave the area. So they can enjoy staying right here in Dayton and then transitioning into whatever they decide to do as a career path next. So great college system here. The Dayton Dragons, right? This is another thing that's really fun to talk about. I've been to a lot of Dayton Dragon games in my time here in Dayton, and I've certainly enjoyed that. We've taken the kids to these games And it's just fun. It's just it's obviously a dialed down version of going to like a Cincinnati Red game or a professional baseball game for that matter. But their fans take it seriously here. And the Dayton Dragons, they're a minor league baseball team of the Midwest League and a high A affiliate of the Cincinnati Reds. They are located in Dayton, Ohio, and play their games at Dare Ballpark, formerly known as Fifth Third Field. In 2011, they broke the record for the most consecutive sellouts by a professional sports team, selling out their 815th consecutive game, breaking the record formerly held by the Portland Trail Blazers. The Dragons came to Dayton in the year 2000 as a franchise was relocated from Rockford, Illinois. The franchise was previously known as the Rockford Expos, then Royals, Cubbies, and Reds. In 2021, the Dayton Dragons and 11 other teams that had previously completed the Midwest League entered the High A Central as Major League Baseball completed a large restructuring of the minor leagues. This was temporarily name changed with the historical Midwest League moniker returning in 2022. So again, if you want to break outside the norm, or if you do enjoy professional sports in whatever city you're coming from, it is a good way to get the professional sports feel at a more reasonable price. And I have to tell you, the facility's an incredible facility. There are suites, and we oftentimes will bring our real estate team into these suites, maybe quarterly, and just do a night out with the team where it's catered. They bring in really, really good food. They have American food. They have barbecue, and they provide all of the drinks. And it is a wonderful experience. The suites obviously overlook home plate, and you can walk out from the suite and have your own seated section here with nobody else in there. So again, great professional sports experience. If you are a baseball fan, highly recommend checking out the Dayton Dragons. Awesome area also for museums. If you are a museum buff, we have some really cool museums here, one being the Boonshoff Museum of Discovery. Let me show you what I found on that as well. The Boonshoff Museum of Discovery it's a children's museum, science and technology center and zoo in Dayton, Ohio, United States, that focuses on science and natural history. Exhibits include an extensive natural history collection, as well as maintaining a collection of live animals. Native to Ohio and abroad, educational outreach extends to the community by providing in-school programming and on-site special programming, such as Sunwatch, Indian Village, and Fort Ancient are the sister sites to the museum. The museum is accredited by the American Alliance of Museums, affiliated with the Association of Children's Museums, and is a governing member of the Association of Science and Technology Centers. In addition, the museum's indoor Discovery Zoo is fully accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. The museum is the only zoo, aquarium, planetarium, or science center in Dayton, and also houses the Apollo Observatory and Astronomical Observatory, operated by the Miami Valley Astronomical Society. So, wonderful place, again, to get away if you're looking for something to do, especially if you have kids, to go and visit. The Wright Brothers Museum, everybody in Dayton knows the Wright Brothers, right? And one of the claims to fame in Dayton here is the Wright Brothers actually hailed from Dayton, Ohio. So the John W. Barry Senior Wright Brothers National Museum has more Wright artifacts on display than any other place in the world, including the 1905 Wright Flyer 3, the only airplane designated a National Historic Landmark, the first practical flying machine, and what the Wright brothers considered their most important aircraft. And then obviously the one we're most famous for, because Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is right here in Dayton, Ohio, and also Dayton's largest employers. And I have to tell you, many of the families that we work with through PCS from outside of the Dayton area, and we love helping those families transition and get to know the area. And most of them are coming to work at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. But a great segue into the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force. And, this one obviously is near and dear to our heart, The National Museum of the United States Air Force, formerly known as the United States Air Force Museum, is the official museum for the United States Air Force, located at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The museum is the oldest and largest military aviation museum in the world, with more than 360 aircraft and missiles on display. The museum draws about 1 million visitors each year, making it one of the most frequently visited tourist attractions in Ohio. This is a must-do. I'm going to include some video of one of my visits. Guys, this is such a cool thing to do, not just for kids, but also for adults, because a lot of what's at the museum, imagine, is housed inside the airplane hangars there. They've converted them actually into the museum. So it's not like you're walking around a plane graveyard. A lot of the times you're indoors. And while there are outdoor planes that you can go see, most of the artifacts included at the museum are all indoors, and they're all climate controlled. So on a day like this in July, where it's 94 degrees, you can go in and actually enjoy yourself, because everything is temperature controlled. So going to the Air Force Museum is a must-do in the city of Dayton. Even if you only go one time, you have to go, because it is a fantastic experience.
And of course, you cannot come to Dayton, Ohio without seeing the infamous, where is it? There it is. The Air Force Museum. This place is awesome. If you visit Dayton, Ohio, you have to check it out. Place just gets better and better. This is amazing. Check this out.
The museum in and of itself dates back to 1923, when the engineering division at Dayton's McCook Field first collected technical artifacts for preservation. In 1927, it moved to the then Wright Field in a laboratory building. In 1932, the collection was named the Army Aeronautical Museum and placed in a WPA building from 1935 until World War II. In 1948, the collection remained private as the Air Force Technical Museum. In 1954, the Air Force Museum became public and was housed in its first permanent facility, building 89 of the former Patterson Field in Fairborn, which had been an engine overhaul hangar. Many of its aircraft were parked outside and exposed to the weather. But again, that is no longer true. So what better note to end on than our fantastic Air Force Museum here in Dayton. So that concludes our video today. Hopefully you found value in this video. Make sure, hit the subscribe button, tap the little bell for notifications, so you can be the first to learn about the market here in Dayton and all of the surrounding suburbs. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words, then video must be worth 1,000,000. Keep in mind, I do these videos for one reason and one reason only, and that's to provide education and inform you about the market here in Dayton, Ohio. Most of our clients are transitioning in from other areas, and they simply don't know a lot about the Dayton area. And so we know these videos have a huge impact based on the feedback that you're giving us. So thank you so much. Whether you're making a move in the next 9 days or 90, make sure, give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, or even schedule a Zoom call in the link below. We'd be happy to help you make the smooth move to Dayton. Thanks for watching.